I guess I'll just get started then. So, hi everyone, my name is Rachel, and I'm here to give you guys a branding crash course today. And I'm super excited to get a chance to talk with you guys. And yeah, thanks so much for MTP Society for having me as well. I have a keynote with a couple slides here, and actually, my personal preference is I don't really like playing keynotes in like a presentation form, so I'm going to go in this way just so I can see what's coming up as well, just so you guys know. So yeah, my name is Rachel, and I am a student based in Shanghai, China, and I go to Shanghai American School here, so I'm also an international student, and I was born and raised in Canada on the West Coast, but I came back and forth on the East Coast as well. And since I've been here, I am the co-founder of an equestrian athleisure brand called Hart Outfitters. I'm wearing it in the photo there. And I'm also the co-founder of a female entrepreneurship community called SheUp. And above that, I am also working in marketing and branding in Shanghai as well. And I have my own little brand to do that with called RKZ Creative. And that's been a lot of fun for me because I get to really explore my passions of marketing, but also what I really love is branding. And I actually started with photography as well. So I'm a super visual person, and that all kind of gave me this background that led into marketing and branding. So today, I'm also giving you guys kind of a branding 101 introduction. And this is what I really, really love because branding is all about the visuals. And it's really everything that you remember about a company. So for example, if you think red and silver for Coca-Cola versus a bright fuchsia for Barbie, these things that really stick into your mind, that's what branding really makes you pick up on. And it's also the aesthetic that you can immediately think of. So for example, for Nike, you have that steely fitness. You might think of these big burly guys working out and also girls working out. Or for Target, you might think of lots of smiling families of four, and you have your toddlers and you have your preteens and everyone super happy around a breakfast table, and there's a bunch of amazing furniture and lifestyle products around you. So that's really what branding comes all the way into. And being able to really develop a cohesive and recognizable brand can seriously make a company, especially a startup company, because that's what gets the image of the brand to really stick into your minds. And it can be super important. It can really make or break a company. So this is basically, I think, the most important step that paves the way for how all the marketing will be. So I really call this something like step 0. And how I like to really break down branding, if I had to, I know it's a little bit abstract in terms of visuals, but I would start out with these 3 things. So number 1, coming up with some adjectives. Number 2, a color palette. And number 3, a mood board. And I will go more in depth into these as well. So first of all, for adjectives, this is what really tells you things about the company, right? So what do you want the company to say? What do you want the look to be like? Do you want people to feel like it's super fun, or do you want people to think it's sharp and edgy? You can tell maybe by this presentation that I have that I always go towards elegance and minimalistic. That's kind of just the style that I like. And these adjectives are, I think, a really great baseline just to start off with, because it kind of lets you know where to go, what do I want to do with everything else, and just coming up with the list of these, I think, is super helpful. And there's really no parameters here. I mean, obviously, there's not just these 6, there are millions of adjectives to use, and by all means, use all of them. Use any adjectives that you can think of that are relevant for the brand that you want to create and the story that you want to create. So after thinking of adjectives, that goes more into something more concrete, which is your color palette. And this is my absolute favorite. I love playing around with colors and how a color speaks to your brand. So I always like to start off with 4 colors, something super simple that could tell you a story. So for example, these 4 are color palettes that I created for a brand that's super focused on sustainability and eco-friendly awareness, but they also wanted to rebrand it to something a bit more elegant and contemporary, and they didn't want to go into classic traditional vibes too much. So that's definitely right up my alley, and you can tell there's a lot of muted tones here. There's a lot of faded colors. I always love using like a faded whites or faded khaki beige color to kind of balance out the bigger tones and really putting these colors together, it can start telling a story. And then this is what a brand will use as they do their graphics, their designs, and how they focus on all of their coloring for the brand. And hopefully this is something that can stick in their minds. So for example, for a different company, this is for RAE Friends, which is a startup that I worked on through LaunchX, a entrepreneurship program. And we created a education and advocacy orientated toy company for kids. So that looks very different from elegant, minimalist, eco-friendly contemporary. That's much more vibrant, it's neon, it's fun, and that's the story here. So two very different color palettes, but I think each of them complement each other very well, not necessarily when you look at all of them as a whole, but they all have the similar vibe that goes towards this certain set of adjectives. So again, super interdetermined by each other. And how I would start with this is I have my 4 colors. I'm doing this on Keynote, so I would literally go into Keynote. Let me see if I can. Okay, or actually maybe not on Keynote because I did some pages, but you can really go in, change each of these colors, tweak them, see what works, play around. Whatever looks good will look good. How I also start is I go on Pinterest, and if you Google color palettes, so many will come up and you get like this sea of colors, and that's also really fun to work with to see what you think might look best and really start developing your brand from that. And just starting with 4 colors can be super powerful. I have 5 here. I wouldn't go over 5 just because I think that can get a bit hectic. I think what you need goes down to these 4. And of course, this isn't a set of rules that you necessarily have to follow all the time, but they are super helpful standards to go off of. And finally, I have a mood board. So mood boards, I think, are also super abstract, and that's where you really get to have a lot of fun with playing around with what you want your brand to tell and the aesthetic that you want it to convey. So I did all of this on Pinterest, and this is a mood board that I put together for Hart Outfitters, which is the equestrian athleisure brand. And as you can see, there's a lot of like warm tones in it, also complemented by slightly cool tones, but this is definitely more in the elegant style. It's a little bit contemporary, a little bit artistic, lots of really clean lines. Love the clean lines. Yeah, and for something like a mood board as well, there's definitely no rules. Like Hart Outfitters is a equestrian athleisure clothing brand, but in fact, maybe there's like 1 or 2 clothing pieces in here, but mainly it's the mood that I want it to convey. So ideally a mood board like this one for Hart Outfitters, I have, I think 250 photos in it, and I have them all in this one Pinterest board, and it's something that you can scroll through, anyone can scroll through and basically pick out an idea of what this brand is, what the image tells you, and that can tell you a lot about the brand itself. So again, no rules for a mood board. I love having different textures here. I think textures are super important. So for example, the satin here versus something that's a little bit more like fine and granite here for the makeup, but also something that's cozy and warm with these wool sweater tones, which I love as well. And of course, horses. So yeah, and I think how this mood board translates hugely, again, for visual aesthetics for photos is when you have to decide the photography that you want to do. So I started as a photographer, so these are just a couple simple photos of mine. We have things that are light and fun, but also a little bit contemporary, elegant with all these clean lines that I love. And we have, again, a lot of textures here. So definitely, I think these two complement each other. And that's how you want your mood board to be conveyed as well. And eventually, when your brand has a lot of photos that you produce yourself, that's when those photos become your mood board. And ideally, that's something that you could have someone flip through 250 photos of and get the story. So those are my 3 kind of main points for how to put together a branding portfolio. I think, they can be really easy to start out with, but just having them in your mind and as a subtext for everything is super important. So if this is step 0, if these branding tips are step 0, then step 1 will go into marketing and more like visuals. So for example, what do the photos look like? How are the graphics designed? And who are the brand ambassadors? If you have these adjectives, like for Hart Outfitters, it's something like fun and cozy, but also elegant, then you have photos that are fun, cozy, and elegant. You have graphics that are fun, cozy, and elegant, and you have brand ambassadors that also embody these values. And this really becomes the face of your brand. So as a really quick example, this is just a couple screenshots I took from the Hart Outfitters Instagram. So I think if you look between the mood board and between this Instagram feed, you can kind of see how there are correlations with the sleek lines, the clean lines, with all of these textures that come in together, and that vibe of like fun, but also a bit cozy. And that's really the vibe that we want to go for. So that's how the branding really translates into marketing structures. And you can see also for graphics, when you have your graphic designer come in, or even yourself, you can tell them we want clean lines, we want something simple, minimalist. So these are like the graphics we have for our launches. So that's really what it all comes down to, which I think is what is super, super fun. Again, this is the visual identity of your brand. It's so important now. Everyone is scrolling through social media. Everyone is consumed by so many images every single day. If you can get one consistent one about your brand out there, that'll be super important, and that will make your company. So I think more or less that's it. That's my 15 minutes of branding for you. And I hope this gives you kind of an introduction on where you can go forwards with branding. I know it can seem a little bit daunting, but genuinely at the end of the day, if it's your company or your group's company, it's what you guys like, because you guys are the voices of the company. You guys are the spirit of the company. So if you guys like something minimalistic and you think that's going to work for your brand, then go with that and make your adjectives for it, make your color palette, and make your mood board. And that's all I have for you. So thank you guys so much. This is my photography page contact, if you guys are interested in it. And, I'm always happy to chat if anyone wants to reach out to talk about colors. I could talk about colors forever, really. I know I have 15 minutes today, but genuinely I can go on. So yeah, thank you guys so much. That's my crash course for you.